The world of personal finance is, for lack of a better term, enormous. There's a lot. It is it is complicated, it is vast, it is confusing, it is intimidating, it is straightforward, it is easy, it is manageable, it is actionable. It's all these things. And it is personal. So, you and your thinking around money is your thinking around money. It's an obvious thing right there. So, there are universal needs that each of us have, and we get to meet those universal needs in very personal ways. So, when it comes to your personal finances, you have needs that must be met, but you get to make the decisions on the best ways to meet those. There are so many different ways to invest money. There's so many different ways to grow and build wealth. There are so many different ways to create income. So, good news, bad news. Good news is I would rather have more choices than fewer, but the bad news is there is an absolute tyranny of choice, meaning that too many choices is too much. I was joking with somebody earlier, and we are talking about how we never really get the chance to just sit down and watch Netflix. It's a function of there's a million different reasons. You understand why. But when we do get the opportunity to do that, it's immediately we immediately find this tyranny of choice. There's just way too many options. I'm just scrolling through and I just get exhausted and I'm fatigued. I'm saying, you know what, forget the whole thing. And decided that we need to come up with a plan for the next time that I intend to zone out and Netflix and chill or whatever, that I need to know what it is that I'm going to do versus simply opening up the app. And what a wonderful microcosm for life that is. So, too much choice, not always a good thing, but when it comes to our money and our finances and the way that we make the decisions on what our priorities are and what matters and how we're going to pursue those things that matter, I think it's better to have more choices than not. But I'll let you decide that. So we're going to talk a little bit about obviously personal finance, but saving, spending, and then really taking a rational approach to money because so much of money, it demands rationality, but kind of like we are physical beings having a spiritual experience. Is that how it goes? Well, money is a very, very, very logical thing utilized by very emotional beings. And the emotional beings, that's you and I. So, all of it, maybe it sounds easy, does hard. Maybe it sounds really hard, but it does easy. I don't know. There's lots of fun word games that I can keep going through, but we're going to be talking a little bit about spending, saving, and thinking rationally about money, all of it designed to help you to be in control and to feel in control of your money and to get the result that you're really looking for. Because, man, it's fewer things more frustrating than making a plan, executing that plan, only to discover that where it takes you is not where you want to go or to end up. So, want to help you avoid that trap, want you to get what you want when it comes to money. It's fundamentally, foundationally, I believe that you are worthy of everything that you want when it comes to your finances. I believe that you're even deserving of it, but none of us are entitled to it. And as I always say, there's never going to be anybody more interested in your financial success than you are, so you must act accordingly. So let's start off by having a conversation about financial literacy versus financial wellness. And financial literacy is what I know, and financial wellness is what I do. And between these two things exists this very famous, very, very real, very human behavior gap between what I know and what I actually do, because I can possess knowledge about a topic, expertise even, but then fall completely short of putting it to work in my life, of implementing it. The story goes, the cobbler's child with holes in his or her shoes. Physician, heal thyself. So just because you possess knowledge or expertise in a certain area doesn't mean that you can put it to work in your life. The whole game is number one, knowing what you do know and what you don't know. So understanding your level of financial know-how, your level of financial literacy, and then figuring out how to actually take and apply this in your life. So it moves from theory to actual practice or the actual doing of it. And then it's a combination of how do I square the circle on the emotional side of money and the logical side of money. And that's really what this is talking about. Daniel Kahneman, rest in peace. Daniel Kahneman, he is the very famous economist, psychologist. I believe that Danny was a psychologist who won the Nobel Prize in economics. And he became fascinated with why it is that we make decisions the way that we do around money. And through his research, and this research turned into a very famous book called Thinking Fast and Slow. And big part of the research, one of the big takeaways was that 90% of the decisions we make around money are made emotionally. So, what do you think about that? Do you think that 90% of your decision making when it comes to money is emotional? The first time I heard that, I was like, no way. There's no way that that's true. No way that 90% of my decisions are based on emotion. Then I thought about it and I realized, oh, everything I do is based on how I feel about it. And that's obviously what emotions are. These are our feelings. So we get a feeling, and if we are not aware of, or not thoughtful or mindful or intentional about what I'm going to do with this, well, then I just immediately act on it. The fast part of our brain, a stimulus comes in and I respond. Trigger response, trigger response. Okay? An example could be I get stressed out or I'm sad. It's an emotional, it's a feeling. And then the response could be the fast part, which is just the knee-jerk response, is retail therapy. Or I'm going to eat something. I'm going to satiate these feelings with some quick dopamine. Or I'm going to scroll social media. The slow part of our brain says, I feel these feelings. I'm sad. And instead of responding and trying to satiate or alleviate that feeling, I recognize. I say, you know what? I'm aware of my patterning that a lot of the time when I do get stressed, I go online and I buy things. Retail therapy happens. I'm aware that I like to do that, but I don't want to do that anymore. So feel a feeling, stressed out, sad, decide, nope, I'm not going to respond by buying something. What I'm going to do is simply go for a walk. I'm going to do some push-ups. I'm going to do something that I'm going to pick up my favorite book and read 5 pages. So I make the decision on, yep, I've got this feeling, but I'm not going to let the tail wag the dog. I'm not going to allow this feeling to get in the way of what I really want. So that's the emotion versus logic piece of this. And again, going back to Kahneman's research, it says that 90% of the decisions we make around money are based on emotion. Well, it's my belief that it's more preferable to make financial decisions logically. So that's what I very much want. I want to take the information I have and put it to work in my life as logically, as rationally, and as purposefully as I possibly can. So once we know, and now you know, that up until this point, most of your decisions around money and finances and probably everything in your life are based on emotion. So now that you know, we could start to bring the percentage down. And every little percentage point that we make between this is an emotional decision. Last year, 90% of my decisions around money were based emotionally, and this year it's 75%. Well, that's a massive improvement. Maybe I can get it down to 50. Da, 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 da. And I don't know that I'm ever going to get my decision making to 100% rational because I'm not a robot. I'm not whatever. That's probably just it. I'm not a Vulcan for you science fiction Star Trekkies out there. I am an emotional person, and emotions are a really wonderful, beautiful thing. They make life whatever. I think we're on the same page there. But I like to talk about if I can get to 80% making the right decision based on logic and reason. If I can make 80% of my decisions based on that, and 20% or 20% emotionally, then I think that I position myself for long-term success. So that's always what I shoot for. So that's food for thought for you. So I think that also when you start thinking about how it is that we are wired, so from an emotional standpoint, again, the fast and the slow part, that can give us evidence of whether or not we have any negative or limiting beliefs around money. We have core foundational beliefs about every aspect of our lives. And we got those from birth, even before birth, to about age 7 or age 8. So all of your lived experiences, your interactions with everybody in your life during that time has produced who you are. So it's produced your operating system, for lack of a better term. Just like your cell phone has an operating system, you and I also have an operating system that's running 24/7 in the background all the time. And if it's running efficiently and optimally or correctly, then we don't have anything to worry about. But if we discover or we find that we have a negative or limiting belief, particularly around money, because we're talking about here, but it could be around anything, it could be around success, business, entrepreneurship, relationships, happiness, any of those things, if you have a limiting belief, it becomes a really dangerous thing or is a really dangerous thing because, in a sense, what it is, it's a self-imposed glass ceiling or it's a glass cage around us. And the glass part's really dangerous because I can't see it. So I don't even know that it's there, but I keep bumping into it over and over again. So I keep making the same dumb mistakes over and over again. And the fast and the slow part that Kahneman talked about, is helpful in helping us to discover whether or not we have one of those negative or limiting emotions or beliefs around money. So here's a quick exercise. Just think about the first thing that comes to mind. Say it out loud or think it. People with money are. Fill in the blank. People with money are. And here's one more. In my family, money. Answer the just complete the sentence. So you could answer those a million different ways. I think people with money are awful, crooks, thieves, terrible people. Or you could answer, I think people with money are very giving, successful, hardworking, industrious, caring. You could say, in my family, money caused fights, divorce, chaos, anxiety, stress. Or you could say, in my family, money gave us the ability to give, to help out those in need. It gave us the ability to go on vacation every year, to live in a great house, and to give me a great education. So essentially two polar opposite views on money. But when we're thinking fast, it's just the first thing that comes to mind. And I think that that is then evidence of whether or not you have a negative belief about money. Because if you have a negative belief about money, I think that you're going to have a hard time acquiring a lot of it. And if you do acquire it, you're going to have a hard time holding on to it. Because if you had really negative beliefs about money and you won the lottery, you're not going to hold on to that money. If you had really, really negative beliefs about money and you had got an inheritance or a business was transferred to you, you're going to have a hard time running that business or maintaining that money or being a good steward of that money. So it behooves us and benefits us. In order to think rationally about it, we need to explore any limiting or negative beliefs we have about it. So I think that those are two really good and important exercises to be considering and to be thinking about. If you want to dig deeper into it, I've written a lot about negative and limiting beliefs, particularly when it comes to finances. And when I think, and I know that when you go down the path of exploring whether or not you have any negative or limiting beliefs, that you'll be able to expand that to the other areas of your life. And I think that that's nothing but a beneficial, important, and valuable thing. So the next thing that I think that we need to do is to get really clear on what matters to us. So I'll pose the question to you. What matters most to you? What matters most? And then what matters most about money to you? What matters most about your finances to you? Is it security? Is it accumulating more? Is it getting out of debt? Is it saving $1 million? Is it owning real estate? Is it owning a bunch of Bitcoin? Is it getting a better job? Is it having career security? what matters. And then the next question is, what must be done in service of what matters? So, what do you have to do? Now that you said this is the thing that matters, what do you have to do to make sure you're elevating that thing that you just said that matters to the important, highest level? And then the idea is that now that I know what matters and what has to be done in service of what matters, I need to allocate my most valuable resources, which I believe are time, attention, energy, and money. Once you know what your most valuable resources are, the goal is to allocate them to what matters. The reality is that not everything can be the most important thing. The very nature of importance says that one thing is of higher value or of greater importance than another thing. And not everything can be the most important thing. And when it comes to money, unless you are independently wealthy, then you must be a good steward of how you are allocating your money. Thomas Sowell famously said there's no solutions, there are only trade-offs. So, what does that mean? Well, every time you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to everything else. So we have to know what matters. We have to know what must be done in service of what matters. And we have to make good decisions on allocating our money to those things that matter most. So, from my perspective, I believe, well, what I hope, what I want for you is that you get whatever you want when it comes to money. Really, I want you to get what you want. You want to get rich? Let's go. You want financial security? I'm here for it, whatever it is. So, what are those steps? I know that I want you to be financially prosperous, but you'll never get there until you first find financial security. So that is not the starting point, but that is the first step, the first milestone when it comes to your path to financial success is financial security. That's our first milestone. So I think that first and foremost, we need to get started with saving money. Because if we're not able to save any money, we're never going to be financially successful. I think it really does come down to being that simple. Can I save money? Yes. Okay, I've got a shot. Can I save money? No. I'm not going to become financially successful. So I have to be able to save money. Most Americans can't come up with $500 in case of an emergency. So the first step is we need to get $1,000 saved up. And that's going to be the beginning of our emergency fund. So I want that to be in an account that is separate from your everyday checking account. So you can't just have the money in your checking account because if it's there, we're going to spend it. So what I want you to do is to open up a savings account at your bank. Shouldn't cost you any money to do that. And work to get $1,000 saved up. Stop doing everything else till you get that $1,000. So that's step number one. Step number two is I want you to start paying yourself first. That is the golden rule of personal finance. That's because if you're in the habit of paying everybody else first and waiting around to the end of the month to pay yourself, well, you'll discover that there's no money left over for you. So we have not elevated our own needs ahead of everybody else's. In fact, what we've done is we put everybody else's needs ahead of ours. So we are violating what matters. Unless what matters to you most is giving everybody else money and paying your bills, if that's what matters most to you over your family's financial security, well, you can just stop watching. Because we are not on the same page. Our values are not aligned. So, got to pay yourself first because you are putting your family's needs ahead of everybody else's, which is exactly where they ought to be. So, how do you pay yourself first? Really simple. The first of the month, you just automatically set up a transfer or a contribution to some account that is to your benefit. A great way to do this is through your 401k at work. If you're not currently enrolled in your company's 401k, get active. Just start putting 1% in. If you don't have a 401k at work or you don't, whatever, you could set up an IRA, an individual retirement account. You could do that at any financial institution. I'm sure your bank has the ability to do that on your behalf. You can go to Fidelity, you can go to Schwab, you can go to whatever. Doesn't matter to me. But it should be very, very inexpensive to set up an IRA, an individual retirement account. And then what you do is you set up automatic contributions into that IRA the first of the month. You can also automate contributions into another savings account, or rather the same savings account. The idea just is that you are paying yourself. You are putting your money into an account for your benefit. And then you pay everybody else, which is exactly the order that it ought to be. From there, I want you to get to 1 month's worth of your expenses saved up. So this demands that we know what our monthly expenses are. Most people don't. It's okay. I'm not here to beat up on anybody or wag my finger at you. What I'm trying to do is to motivate, inspire, educate you, empower you to go ahead and get started on this and get on the path to financial security. So I need you to get 1 month saved up. And I know that that's a lot of money, but we're just getting started. From there, I want you to pay off any credit card debt that you have. That's where we get mad at our credit card debt. So we've got a free course. It's called Get Out of Debt. You can access it on moneyalignmentacademy.com. Go to the courses page, go to Get Out of Debt. It'll walk you through the process of coming up with a plan to eliminate your credit card debt. And get pissed. Go to war with it. Credit card debt's the worst. And I speak from experience in all of this stuff. I usually mention that at the top of every video, so let me do it now. I'm fortunate to have made a lot of good financial decisions over the course of my life, and I made all the dumb decisions too. So I sit here not because I'm perfect. I sit here because I've done all the things. I've lived paycheck to paycheck. I have been in and out of credit card debt. In fact, I spent the majority of my 20s doing that. So I know how it goes. I know how it feels, and I know how hard it is to get out. So if you're not in credit card debt, don't get into credit card debt. If you're in credit card debt, do everything you need to, do everything you can, do everything that needs to be done in service of what matters. And right now, what matters is you getting out of credit card debt. So focus on doing that. And that could take you a couple of years. I think the average American right now is around $6,000, $7,000. Can you get that done in a year? Sure. Can you get it done in a couple of years? For sure. So once you've done that, then I want you to get 2 months of expenses saved up, then 3, then 4, then 5, finally 6. And I know how easily those words leave my mouth. And I know how hard it is. And I know how much money that is. But it's worth it. Why is it worth it? Well, because once you've completed these steps, you're going to go like this. You're going to go, tension's going to come out of your shoulders. And that's such a beautiful thing. You know what you've gotten right there? You have right now. Fast forward, future pace. We're going out in the future. You have paid off all your credit card debt. You've got 6 months worth of living expenses saved up. You've been saving money. You've been paying yourself first this whole time. You have financial security. It's the very definition of financial peace of mind, financial security. You're now positioned to pursue financial prosperity. So that's nothing but a really exciting, good thing. All right. So let's talk about spending money. Let's talk about just managing money, saving and spending. We have to be able to manage our cash flow. And like I've been talking about, you can't live paycheck to paycheck because we just never get ahead. If we're trying to, obviously, a massive part about becoming financially successful is our ability to accumulate assets. So it could be saving money, could be buying real estate, whatever. But if I'm living paycheck to paycheck, meaning I spend every penny that I earn, I'm never going to break that cycle. So I'm never going to be able to save money. And that just means that I'm probably spending too much money. So we need to figure out how to do that. So I can either earn more, get a promotion, I can take on a second job, I can start selling stuff, or I can live on less. And I'm not a big proponent of cutting lifestyle, but I'm more a proponent of becoming financially secure. That's more important to me than the dislike of cutting lifestyle. I don't know what it is for you, but that is more important to me. So once you make the decision that I am going to find financial security, that's when it's time to start making some changes. And if you desire change, change is required, which you already know. So sometimes, in order to take a bunch of steps forward, we have to take some steps back. If we're in the red, meaning we are in debt, we got to take steps back and get in black. So get back to even. So if I have to cut lifestyle for a couple of years, I have to cut things out, drive a smaller, lesser car, downsize my home, whatever. You need to make the decisions on how you're going to meet your universal needs. You need to make these decisions. And way too often, we're worried about what other people are going to think of us. And there's never a right time to think about that. There's never a right time to concern myself with what other people think of me. Frankly, What other people think of me is none of my business. That's not my business. I don't care what you think of me. And I certainly don't care what you think of me when it comes to my finances. Unless you're paying my bills, friend. Unless you're going to get me out of credit card debt. Unless you're going to fund my 401k contributions. Unless you're going to save up a down payment for me on a home. Unless you're paying for my kids' college. I couldn't give less of a fuck what you think of me. And I encourage you to think the same way. I don't want you to care what I think about you. I don't want you to worry about what I think about anything. Well, except for this. I would encourage you to take this advice. So that's a really important thing. You need to this we're talking about your life. We're talking about your family, your priorities, what matters to you. So I'm not telling you what should matter. I'm telling you you need to decide what matters to you and then do what is necessary to get to do what matters. Stop living paycheck to paycheck. We need to have a handle on our cash flow. And if in going through the exercise of knowing how much your monthly expenses are, you've essentially done that. So cash flow and budgeting are foundational. You want to get on top of your personal finances. You want to act rationally and logically when it comes to money. You want to understand how to spend and save appropriately. It's cash flow and it's budgeting. You have to know how much money is coming in. You have to know how much money is going out. Simple cash flow. You have to know how much debt you have. I encourage you to know the value of your assets. You might think don't have any, and you might not have very many, but you have some. So know these things. Know your numbers. And then you have to have a budget. All a budget is a plan for your money. There's something called a reverse budget, which I've spoken on and written about, which I think is wonderful. You could also think about it as a pay yourself first budget, because what it's all about is it is making sure that you understand what matters and making sure that you have budgeting or budgeted in whatever is necessary to get what you want, to get what matters. So what matters could be financial security. In that example, it could be I'm getting out of credit card debt and I'm going to get that emergency fund saved up. So those should be the two top items on your budget. So instead of just trying to figure out how much everything costs, you prioritize and you start with those two things. So, okay, in order to get out of credit card debt in a year and a half or 2 years or a year, we need to be putting $500 a month towards our credit card bill. Okay, these are made up numbers, obviously. So that's number one. Then you say, okay, and the next thing is we need to develop that emergency fund. Okay, so can we do another $400 or $500? And then you figure out the rest of it. Say, okay, that's not going to leave a lot of money left over for going out to eat, or it's not going to leave a lot of money for whatever it is. You decide what matters. You decide your priorities, and then you put those into action. And I think a reverse budget, very helpful tool in doing that. Simplifies the budgeting process as well. And making plans, you are perfectly capable of completing and making financial plans. It's an overblown term, it's kind of a heavy term, somewhat intimidating, and because people want it to be, but it need not be. Doing a financial plan is super, super basic. If you've ever gone on vacation and you've planned your vacation, you've made financial plans. You've made the decision on where you were going, when you were going there, how long you're going to stay there, how you're going to get there, where you're going to stay, what you're going to do, where you're going to eat, all these things. These are financial plans. Okay? When you're making a plan, you decide that this is my objective. I want to be able to buy a house in 5 years. So I need this much of a down payment to buy a house that's this expensive. I need to be saving this much each month. That's a financial plan. Your retirement says, okay, I'm 30 years old. I'm going to retire at 65. And nobody's expecting you to be perfect about that. I'm just you're giving yourself the option to retire at 65 if you want. So I've got 35 years to be saving, and I want to have this much. So I need to be saving this much today. Okay, that's a financial plan. So it's just understanding when you want the thing, how much the thing's going to cost, how much you need to be saving right now, and what the right vehicle, what the right account is for that objective, and what the type of investment is inside of that account that will help you to meet that objective. And these are financial plans. So you can do these things. So many wonderful calculators. You can go use your favorite AI tool. Say, hey, I'm doing some retirement planning. You're a financial advisor. How would you recommend that I save money, or how much do I need to save if I'm trying to accumulate $5 million in 35 years? It'll tell you. There you go. And then ask somebody else to kind of verify it. But that'll get you pretty close, I bet. And then back to the emotional part. How do we handle adversity? Because it's never going to be a straight line. It's never going to work out exactly as we want it to. Man plans, God laughs, as the saying goes. So, how do we handle adversity? Well, that's going to come. I mean, adversity shows up in so many different forms. But one of the most critical things we must do is not allow conditions that are well beyond our control to influence our behaviors. So, when the stock market goes down, how will you respond? Well, I advocate that you don't do anything at all for the most part, particularly when we're talking about your 401k. Let's talk about retirement planning and stock market and emotions. Let's say that you've been saving in your 401k for 5 years. You've got $100,000 in the account. Awesome job. Or you've got $10,000 in the account. Doesn't matter to me. And you open up your balance or your account and you see that because the market, it went down 40%. So your $10,000 is now $6,000. So, oh my gosh, this is awful. And you feel like you're angry, you're sad, you're upset, you're scared. Now you have choices. You can respond, and you could do nothing, or you could sell everything. I advocate that you do nothing. Why? Well, the same part of our brain that responds to mortal danger is also the same part that responds to market losses. So when you open up your 401k and you see that your account is down at $4,000, your brain says, get out, sell everything. It's like you smell smoke in a building, you want to run out of the building. That's helpful. When the stock market goes down, your brain tells you to sell. That is not helpful. So our brain is wired to keep us alive and to keep us safe, but in this example, it's not serving us. If you sold in 2000 during the dot-com burst, bubble pop or whatever, that's the only way you lost money, because certainly the market recovered. If you sold in 2008 during the Great Recession, you lost all your money. But if you just stayed and everything recovered, every time there's a market correction, it goes down, but then it goes back up. It doesn't mean it's always going to do that. I don't know what the market's going to do, but be pretty sure that historically speaking, it goes from the left side of the screen and up to the right. So over time, the market has historically gone up, even though it goes down and up on a daily basis. So handling adversity, but also just all kinds of different events. Just be mindful and be thoughtful of when you are feeling certain things. Say, oh, I expected this. I got bad news, and so I expect to feel a certain way, but that doesn't mean I'm going to respond to it. I think that that's one of the big keys to all of this. Handling your personal finances, successfully navigating the emotions that all of us have, successfully navigating the stress and anxiety and fear, all of these things. But I don't know what matters. You do what is required in service of what matters, and then we let the chips fall where they may. That's one of the big keys. So again, one more time. There's never going to be anybody more interested in your financial success than you are, brothers and sisters. So act accordingly.